Okay, here we are, 23rd of Iyar, lessons in Tanya. Oh, no, I'm out of order. Hayom Yom. Hayom Yom. Okay, the beginning of one's decline, God forbid, God save us, is the lack of avoida, a lack of avoida in davening, right? You know, davening is called avoida. Avoida shebalev, Chazal say, avoida shebalev zut tefillah. The work, the service of the heart, this is davening. And that's the beginning. Everything becomes dry and cold. Even a mitzvah performed by habit becomes burdensome. In other words, the stuff you're accustomed to do becomes a weight. Everything is rushed. One loses the sense of pleasure. The Yiddish word is geschmack, the tastiness. One loses the sense of pleasure in Torah study. The atmosphere itself becomes crass. Needless to say, one is totally incapable of influencing others. I'm just side note. It's interesting. Today is Tiferes Shabi Yesod, and Tiferes is beauty, harmony, and it's connected with the heart. So this negativity is Tiferes. Your heart isn't in it. Yesod is connection. You don't have a heartful connection. Interesting to me that each day is aligned with so perfectly with the Spheros. No surprise. Oh, now we do lessons in Tanya to point the place to people who are looking there, which is on page 764. We're beginning a new chapter, chapter Nun Aleph, the first of the last three chapters of Likutei Amorim, the wind down, with its ending being Ein Lo Kadosh Baruch Hu, that Hashem has no other dwelling place in this world, Ella Bedalet Amis of Halacha. The ultimate is the deed. And that's how the Alter Rebbe will wind down the Tanya, reminding us that with everything we've been learning, the deed, Ma'aseh hu ha'ikar. So this starts the beginning of the last three chapters. Okay? Perek Nun Aleph. V'hine l'taisves bir, to bring additional explanation to the Lashon Hayanuka, the language of the small child. This is, if you remember, the Le'il, above we spoke about the small child of the Zohar. And the small child of the Zohar says that there needs to be oil on the head of a person. And that gives rise to the Yamalke, and it's also an indication of the Shekhinah, which hovers above. And that's a fuel. That's a fuel that fuels us to ultimately to action. So the Yanuka, the small child of the Zohar that we said above, we're going to Tzorek Levar Techila, we're going to return to that and add some explanation in that metaphor. But first, let's Levar Techila Lahavin Ketzas Inyan Hashrosh Hashechina. Let's understand first something about what's the idea of the indwelling Hashros of the Shekhinah. Because that's what the Yanuka, the metaphor of the small child had. There needs to be oil on the head to draw down, to illuminate the head, and then the head to the body, to make a person on fire. And that is initiated by the Hashrosh of the Shekhinah, the divine presence upon the head. As we know, the Nefesh Elokis, the indwelling of God in us, starts with, is from the Nefesh Elokis, and that's its residence, its point of contact is in the head, right? The Nefesh Elokis resident in the head. This is back to chapter 1, 2, and 3 of Tanya, and then the Nefesh Bahamas in the heart. So let's understand a bit about the Rosh HaShekhinah, the indwelling of the divine presence. First of all, there is the notion of it dwelling in the larger world, the Olam Gadol, the physical world, as well as the Olam Katan, the small world, which is us. But in the larger world, it dwells and dwelt openly in the Holy of Holies in the Beis HaMikdash. That's where the Shekhinah, the touch point of God's presence, existed. And then all place where there is the indwelling of the Shekhinah, Ma inyona. What is it all about? What does it mean? Hashrosh HaShekhinah, the dwelling or indwelling of the divine presence. Isn't it true that the whole earth is full of his glory? And as the Zohar says, and there's no place free of him. So what is this that we're isolating this thing called Shekhinah? God is everywhere. And we say that not only we're isolating, we say its place is the Kodesh Kodashim. Isn't God everywhere? Is there no place which is not full of him? So Achayinyan is the following. The topic will be explained. Kedikasiv, it's written in Iyov, in Job, it's written, from my flesh I can see godliness. This is a huge sentence throughout all of Chassidus, meaning to shed light on the simple statement that we're created in the image of God, in the shadow of God, that when we look at the way we're constructed, we can understand something. It becomes a metaphor for the way God enables all of creation, the way that God, just as another expression, just as the neshama fills the body, so Hashem fills the world. So by understanding ourselves, our flesh, and how we're constituted, we can understand something about the operation of godliness in the creation. From my flesh I can see godliness. Just as the soul, and here he means the power, the life force of the soul, effuses and fills all of the 248 limbs of the body, from head to toe. And nevertheless, we say that the Ikar Mishkan of the Hashros, we say that the root dwelling place and resting place of the godly soul, is in the brain, right? So, right, we're getting somewhere. The Shekhinah is in the Beis HaMikdash. That's its point of contact, but it flows out from there to all the limbs and organs of the world, of the earth. Just like the neshama, who is Ikar, their main root residence is in the brain, it flows out into all the limbs and organs of the body from the brain. From the brain, the life force of the soul flows out into all the limbs. And each and every limb and organ of the body receives a quality of the life force that's appropriate for it, according to its composition and its structure. Ha'ayin liros, the eye to see, the ha'ozun lishmaya, and the ear to hear, the ha'pele dava, the ha'pele daber, and the mouth to speak, the haraglayim lahalech, and the feet to walk. As we see in actuality, that the head experiences everything that's going on in the body. And all the events that happen to anything in the body is felt in the head. Awareness, we call that. Right? I'm aware of the pain, or God forbid, or the pleasure in my heart, and etc. And when I touch something, it registers in my brain. Everything comes back to the brain, and everything comes from the brain. So the changes that are going on in the body, right, the variations and the vagaries of experience that the body is having, so that's not from receiving certain powers that are coming from the neshama, mitzad atzma, meaning the neshama, and here we've used this before, we'll take what I just said earlier, just like the soul fills the body, Hashem fills the worlds. So reverse it. Just like Hashem is a simple unity, right? He's an ultimate, tachlis hayichud, the ultimate in singularity. Nevertheless, there comes from him multiplicity. So similarly, the soul. The model is the soul. Later he'll talk about the sun, which is even, I think, better. And because I'm not saying it, the Alter Rebbe says it. There's one sun, but it enlivens everything differently according to the receptivity of the particular thing. Okay, I think that's self-explanatory. So similarly, the neshama is not a multiplicity, it's a singularity, but from it comes a chayas, and it beams out light, and that light has the ability to conform itself and take on a particular quality depending on the makabel, the receiver. So we'll just say the sentence again. The differentiations and the changes that are received and the different powers and the life forces that are in the limbs of the body is not from the neshama itself, umahuso, and it's from essence. It's not that the neshama is divided into 248 different parts, which are enclosed in 248 different places. According to the particular place and the structure of the limb of the body. Which according to this, if it were this way, that the neshama sort of divides itself and becomes a multiplicity, which we're saying is not the case. If it were the case, it would come out that nimsa, that atzmusa umahusa, mitzayir b'tzira gashmi, that you'd be thinking of the soul as a kind of the way you think about a physical thing, that a physical entity, any physical entity has parts, or at least it has top and bottom, right, left, middle, etc. Or if it's an organism, it has many complex parts. And you might think of the neshama as having many complex parts. Analogously, just as God enlivens an infinite number of parts, you might say God has an infinite number of parts. It's certainly true that particularization, partfulness, having parts, comes from him, but he is a singularity. And similarly, the soul, particularization comes out of it, but it himself is a singularity. So don't imagine that. Don't imagine the soul as like a physical thing with parts. V'demus tavnis aguf chas v'sholem, and that the soul has a structure like the structure of the body. That's not the case. Elakula etzem echad. The soul is one singular essence. Ruchni, spiritual. Pashat, simple. Simple means no differentiation. It doesn't mean simple like, it's an easy thing. I mean, simple means not differentiated. It's a etzem echad, ruchni pashat. Umushpat, and it comes out and becomes, the divisions come out from it, bechol tzir gashmi, into every physical form, umechinis v'geder makam, and into every particular place, umida ugavul, and in a manner of measurement and boundedness, gashmi, mitzad mahusa v'atzmusai, but that's not from its essence. In other words, that's not the way it is in its essence. It's not relevant, it's not appropriate, would be the better word, to think about the soul and say about the soul that it's more in the head than it is in the body. Yes. Because its essence is not at all encapsulated in any particular place in the body. The essence of the soul, again, like the essence of God, is a complete pshita, singularity. And it's the effusions of it, which have, like the effusions, the rays, the ha'oras of the soul, like the ha'ora, the radiations of God, the illuminations of God, like the rays of the sun, which become particularized. But it itself is a simple unity, and it's not inbound, can't be thought of in terms of some kind of physical thing. It's just that where do these 613 different powers come from? Well, the Tariag Mina Koiches V'Chayas Kolulim Ba. The 613 powers are included in it, in its essence, but in what we call tachlis hapashitos, with a complete pashitas, just like everything that ever was, is, and will be is included in Hashem, but not yet in a state of differentiation, right? So similarly, the soul. Everything is included in it, but not in a differentiated way. You can't look into the soul and see the homunculus, which is the shape of a man inside the singular soul. You're not going to see that, because everything there is in tachlis hapashitas, is in a simple unity. And what we call the multiplicity, where it comes from, is a revelation. That's all the particularization of that which at source is completely hidden. The particularization is completely hidden in the soul, in the same way that the particularization of all of creation and reality is hidden in the deep measures of godliness before they become articulated or materialized. So the behind Agili, you're seeing a revelation of something that's hidden. And there is a force there, yes, which will enliven each of, and in a different way, each of the 248 limbs, the Sagitim and the 365 tendons and ligaments and whatever else, Shabaguf, in the body, through the rays and radiations of the soul being enclosed where? In the body. And how does the body get its animus? From the Nefesh HaBahamis. So, or the Nefesh Elokis, the enlivening animal soul. Nefesh HaChayunis HaBahamis, an enlivening animal soul. Sheyesh Lagam Kem Ramak V'Shisa Koiches, which also has 248 and 365 powers, V'Chayas Halalo, and which are extensions and manifestations of this Chayas. Okay, that's today's Tanya. I mean, we're obviously in the middle of developing an idea. I mean, synopsis of this is the singularity of the soul is like the singularity of God. The multiplicity that comes from it is like the multiplicity that comes out of God, which at origin is ultimately pachet, simple, not defined at all. And soon he'll bring the mashal of the sun. The sun itself, it's one body manifesting one light, but through the process of going through atmospheric, which corresponds in the analog to the tzimtzum, to various kinds of gradations, it becomes diffused and reaches the lily according to the life force that the lily needs, and the cow according to the life force that the cow needs. And this is the beginning. Okay, with that, comments and questions? Okay, then Abachain? Know that every drop of blood that's within you, every movement of cells within the tissues within you, are all orchestrated by the soul, even though the soul has no tissue, no organs, but it's there for us to listen to and to operate in accordance with the godly soul. And with that, we'll end today's Tanya, if I can.
Thank you.
You got it. Bye-bye.